Excuse me. Regarding the medical fees, I'm afraid you will have to pay for everything, and the bill amounts to this much. My husband was taken to the hospital after being involved in a car accident and had to undergo surgery, and my parents-in-law were surprised when they saw the bill of all the medical expenses combined.
$10,000? That's outrageous. How could it be that expensive? Our son is a company employee. Medical bills should be covered by his company's social insurance policy.
I'm afraid that his health insurance was terminated the day he resigned from the company, sir.
Resigned?
The receptionist then handed me the bill, expecting the patient's wife to pay everything in full. But I said, once and for all, "Oh, I'm not going to pay it. I've already decided to get a divorce." My father-in-law was furious and called me heartless, among other nasty things. But when I explained the reason for why he had resigned, this is a story of how not keeping your significant other informed of the situation can cause a whole deal of chaos, and how my own husband's betrayal was so complete, it cost him literally everything he had in his life. My name is Adrian, and I'm a 32-year-old part-time housewife. My job I do remotely from home, and except for going to headquarters a couple of times a month, I work at home while raising my 5-year-old son, Wyatt, and taking care of household chores. My husband, Dallas, is 34 years old and works in an ordinary office. He and I met in the cooking club during our college years, and after getting paired one time for a sort of in-house contest, we started to talk about lots of different things, found our similarities, and grew attracted to each other. He had the kind of personality where once he had a job to do, he was passionate about it, and had a high level of ambition, which I respected hugely when I first met him. And while we were dating, it never caused any problems until more recently, where he had been working overtime so often and on the holidays. On the rare occasions he does have a day off, he usually slept the whole morning away and spent the rest of the day at home, doing nothing much of anything at all. I was frustrated with his lack of interest in housework and childcare, but I turned a blind eye to all, thanks to the fact that he was working hard for our family. Wyatt himself had also grown accustomed to the fact that it was just how his father was like, and he didn't seem to miss him very much at all. During the week, he was completely focused on playing with his friends in his class at daycare, and on weekends, my parents or in-laws came over to take care of him. So I suppose one could say he never had any time to feel lonely. As for me, the best thing is for my son to be happy and healthy. But I felt sorry for Dallas, who had little time to spend with his adorable son. Then, one day, my son frowned and said as though he was in some kind of pain. "Mommy, my tooth hurts." I looked closely and saw that my son's front tooth was moving a little, and his gums were bleeding. I hurried to take him to the nearest dentist and was relieved to hear that it was time for the tooth to fall out naturally, and that there was nothing to worry about. Wyatt was nervous, but he opened his mouth and let the dentist take a good look at his teeth. "Good for you, Wyatt. You did a great job. The doctor said you were such a big, brave boy." "I was a little scared, but I was fine." A few weeks later, I found an envelope in the mail with Wyatt's name on it. It was a notice from the Health Insurance Association requesting a refund of medical expenses. The insurance card I'd used for my son's dentist visit had expired, and along with the request for a refund was a bill for the full payment of the dentist expenses. Luckily, since it was but a routine checkup, it amounted to about $80. But it still immediately confused me, because my son's health insurance was paid for by my husband's workplace's social insurance policy. Wyatt's health insurance identification card had been renewed just last year, and after checking again, I confirmed it was during the period of time that should make it eligible to be accepted as proper insurance ID. The fact that it had expired meant only one thing: Dallas was no longer eligible for the company's social insurance policy. Wait, that could only mean no way he quit his job. My thoughts were jumbled up with doubts and questions as to where the hell my husband, who went to work on time every morning and came home late at night, looking and acting totally exhausted, was going off to every day. I suppose I could have asked him about what the heck was going on, or maybe even his company, but for some reason, I hesitated. I wondered what he was hiding from me that he was not telling me. The fact that it involved our son made the matter very important to me in an instant. If he had already left the company and was hiding the fact that he did from me, his wife, it was obviously because he didn't want me to know why he left. I was curious about what Dallas was hiding, so I decided to follow him tomorrow and find out for myself. The next morning, I left the house with my son before he left for work. I have to go to HQ on short notice for a special meeting today.
Oh, okay. What time will you be home?
Let's see. Well, I've got a meeting and then some entertainment of some new clients that could partner up with my workplace, so I'm pretty sure I'll be coming home at night. I already asked Mom to bring him back home from work. I decided to pretend to leave my son with my mother on short notice and to go to headquarters that day. I was planning to follow my husband after this, making sure I wouldn't be found when he left the house. But he never did come out of the house. About 2 hours later, however, a woman whom I didn't recognize appeared. She walked through the front door of our house without hesitation, and Dallas welcomed her inside by grabbing her waist, kissing her on the lips, and then pulling her by the hand inside the house. I was evidently shocked. I was so shocked that I couldn't think straight for a long while thereafter. Not only had my husband been hiding from me the fact that he had quit his job, but he had been having an affair and had invited the woman whom he was having an affair with into our home while thinking I was away. If so, I could never forgive him. I was so mad that I marched right up to the front door, opened the front door, and stormed inside without thinking twice. "Dallas, are you there?" I heard an onslaught of panic shuffling and quick footsteps coming from the ceiling. The two traders were evidently scampering, desperate to get their clothes back on and get the woman out of the damn window or something. I heard whispers, quiet and yet full of malevolence and panic. I took out my phone on the spur of the moment, heavily suspecting that the lack of a response was solid proof of an affair. Bringing my phone out in front of me helped me decide the next course of action, taking photographs of them getting caught red-handed in the scene of the affair. When I opened Dallas's room, where I sensed signs of people, I found him and the woman who had entered the house half naked. They were in the middle of rushing to put on their clothes. Most of their clothes were strewn all over the floor. I froze, but I took a picture of the room. Then I pointed my phone at them and took a picture. Dallas covered his face as he yelled at me.
What the frick are you doing? Stop this! Now!
I yelled back. "Who is this woman? You've been having an affair in this house, haven't you?"
Don't be stupid. It's not like that.
As he adamantly denied ever having an affair with this woman while putting his pants back on, I felt my thoughts, which had been burning with anger up until then, rapidly cool down. It was as though the energy of an exploding volcano had been successfully harnessed, captured, and compressed into an all-powerful bomb that was now ticking. He had to tread carefully now, or the bomb would go off and wreak merciless havoc on life as he knew it. I guess this is what it felt like to experience an instant where even 1,000 years of love turned stone cold. I've heard of instances like that, and I always hoped I would never experience it myself. The respect and love I had for Dallas suddenly turned to the purest contempt. The woman with whom he was having an affair with went hysterical.
Hey, why is your freaking wife here? I thought you said she wasn't gonna be home until late at night.
You shut the frick up, Susanna. Adrienne, listen to me. This isn't what you think. I haven't done anything wrong. I swear on my love for you and on my life. It's just a misunderstanding.
He looked like a complete fool for even implying such a thing under the circumstances. He was still struggling to unzip his pants as he put them on backwards a couple of moments earlier. Not to mention, the woman known as Susanna was just putting on her translucent purple blouse, still in her underwear. What kind of a person would claim that he was not doing anything wrong to his wife, who was looking at such a scene as I was at that moment? Susanna, who had finished changing her clothes, exclaimed angrily,
I'm freaking done. I'm leaving. Get the hell out of my way.
She left the room in a huff. I waited in silence until I heard her scream in frustration downstairs. Pound so hard, the entire house shuddered and slammed the front door shut behind her. I continued to question Dallas. What the hell was going on here just now? Explain it all to me, now. And everything has to be the truth, or I swear I'll make you regret you ever got on my dark side.
It's a misunderstanding. She's in love with me, but I'm not in love with her. I told a few colleagues of mine, my boss included, that I was feeling sick today. Susanna found out and texted me. She asked me a few questions, and I answered them. Then she had the audacity to come over to our place unannounced. No sooner had she come inside of my room than she started taking off her clothes. Thank God you came in a nick of time, Adrienne.
Who is Susanna?
Oh, She's just an acquaintance from work.
If she just took off her clothes on her own, you should be dressed.
Give me a break. I'd been sleeping in my underwear from the get-go. Then she just friggin' barged in.
Then there should be a layer of women's clothing on top of your own clothes. But she took off her clothes after you, right? But look, I held the screen of my phone which showed the shot of the whole room I'd taken mere moments ago, right up to Dallas's face, and said, "Your clothes are thrown on top of hers. The state of your clothes on the floor is proof that you took them off after she did, the complete opposite of what you claim, and thus proves you were just about to do the unthinkable. You are guilty of committing adultery, Dallas Rowans." Perhaps he understood he was completely defeated here, because he gave a groan and shut the hell up. I didn't believe a word of his excuses from the beginning, and I was sick and tired of this whole exchange. The more I talked to him, the more disappointed, the more ashamed, the more contemptuous I became. I said to him, "I had no idea you were a man capable of such genuine betrayal. We can't go on together as a married couple anymore."
So it's my fault. And my fault only, is it? You sound exactly like Barrowman, my boss.
I sound like your boss? Oh yeah, that's right. I've been meaning to ask you this. What the hell happened to you and your job? We didn't have any health insurance when I took Wyatt to the dentist the other day, and his medical bills had to be paid out of my own pocket in full.
Oh, I quit the company a long time ago. I'm gonna start my own business.
What? You're gonna... What?
My girlfriend from earlier is supporting my independence, Adrienne. She says she wants to be with me even if it means she has to divorce Barrowman, her husband.
I was dumbfounded. Dallas wasn't having an affair with just an ordinary person from the same workplace. He was having an affair with his own boss's wife. I decided that I had to get a divorce as soon as possible and get away from this man with my son. I contacted my mother at home, explained the situation, packed my bags, and decided to move in with my parents for the time being. My parents now knew Dallas's dark side as much as I did by then, and agreed to the divorce, but they were worried sick about Wyatt. Wyatt himself didn't know that my parents and I were so angry with his father, and he was just his usual happy self, overjoyed to stay over at Grandma and Grandpa's house. I called Dallas's old workplace and asked the receptionist to patch me through to Mr. Barrowman, Dallas's boss and husband to Susanna, Dallas's lover. According to Mr. Barrowman, my husband's reputation had fallen dramatically because he was having an affair with his wife, and Dallas, who was an innately very proud man, had resigned voluntarily because he felt it was difficult to stay at work. He was so confident in his own abilities that he was talking about starting his own business, but up until that point, he was still only attending expensive corporate seminars. He made me think he was going to work every day, but in reality, he was either attending semi-pointless seminars or meeting up with his lover. With the reason for quitting his job like that, it was only natural that he would try to hide the truth from his wife, and it made sense to me. However, that night, I received the most unexpected call from Mrs. Rowans, my mother-in-law. She sounded like she was having a panic attack. "Dallas was in an accident, Adrian. He got into an accident in a car driven by a woman he apparently knew, and he's in surgery for injuries to his face and legs." I really didn't want to go to the hospital, but my parents-in-law, who didn't know the truth about their son, must have thought it suspicious that his wife didn't come running. So despite my gut's objections, I went to the hospital anyway. At the hospital, as expected, the woman whom Dallas was having an affair with was also injured and was being treated in the emergency room, and she was glaring at me with a sulky look on her face. A man I could only assume was her husband, Mr. Barrowman, was being interviewed by a couple of police officers, and I walked past the room. I met my in-laws in the waiting room and asked them what had happened. They told me that Susanna was driving them to work. What kind of work were they expected to do at this hour on a Sunday? I responded vaguely to my mother-in-law's curious question. I don't know. Anyway, Dallas is going to be hospitalized, so I hope you understand when I ask that you take good care of him. I didn't know how to answer that, and my face contorted in bitter displeasure. Then a receptionist came in and told us, "Excuse me, regarding the medical fees." My in-laws were absolutely flabbergasted when they saw the bill, which estimated the whole medical bill, including Dallas's surgery, to be around 10 grand.
$10,000? That's outrageous. How could it be that expensive? No. This has to be a mistake. If we applied for something, we could reduce the cost, right?
The receptionist replied, "That is only if you have health insurance, sir. If you do not have health insurance, you will have to pay the full amount out of pocket." Mr. Rowans gave the receptionist a dubious look when he understood that my husband didn't seem to have health insurance.
But our son is a company employee. Medical bills should be covered by his company's social insurance policy.
I'm afraid that his health insurance was terminated the day he resigned from the company, sir.
Resigned?
The receptionist then handed me the bill, expecting the patient's wife to pay everything in full, as though she thought my stunned-in-laws wouldn't be able to handle it. In response to that, however, I said, empathetically, "I'm not going to pay it. I've already decided to get a divorce." Mr. Rowans, who was rather a strict sort of man, turned red as he became very angry.
My son is suffering, and you're willing to abandon him in the hour he needs you most? I thought you were so much better than that, Adrienne. You heartless, soulless harpy. What a disgrace.
Mrs. Rowans rushed to intervene in an attempt to calm him down. "Adrian, dear, what's the matter? Why are you suddenly deciding to divorce him?" "Well, as you just heard, Dallas did indeed resign from his job. I have a big problem with him hiding his resignation from me. He hid that reality because he didn't want us to know why he resigned." I proceeded to tell my in-laws that the driver who caused the accident was Susanna, my husband's lover, and that she was actually the wife of Mr. Barrowman, his boss's wife. I told him that the company had found out about the affair, pressured him severely, and his proud ass wound up taking the easy way out and resigned from his job. As I expected, my in-laws didn't believe the idea of their son having an affair right away. But they changed their minds when they saw the pictures I had taken of the scene of the affair. Susanna had only suffered minor injuries, so she was sent home after treatment in the emergency room. On the way home, however, her husband, Mr. Barrowman, Dallas's boss, whom I had talked to on the phone during the day about why Dallas had resigned, the same man that was answering the questions of a couple of police officers, strode up to us and sincerely apologized.
I am so sorry that my wife's negligence caused Mr. Dallas's injuries. If you don't know already, my wife Susanna and Dallas have been in a relationship to begin with for quite some time now, as it would seem, and I understand that Miss Adrienne here found out only about it recently. According to my wife, while they were talking about their separation in the car, she carelessly veered her gaze away from the road and caused the accident. So to be honest, I think she is at fault there as well, and I am so sorry to hear that he was seriously injured. I really do hope he survives and recovers quickly.
The in-laws showed multiple colors in their expressions: red with anger, blue with shame, green with disgust, white with shock. Unable to say anything, but after Mr. Barrowman and his wife left, the anger towards their son seemed to prevail over all else.
What a gosh damn mess this turned to be. How could he frickin' do such a ridiculous thing? With a wife and son, no less.
This must be heaven's punishment.
Adrienne, my dear, how could we ever apologize to you for our foolish son's inexcusable behavior?
My in-laws were furious at my husband's infidelity and literally got on their knees to apologize to me. So I deemed them good people and didn't blame them for anything. I got angry with Dallas again for making them so sorry and ashamed about his actions. Eventually, he had no other choice but to pay for his own treatment with all of his savings, and it still wasn't enough, so he had to go into debt. He then applied for national health insurance with the help of a hospital caseworker. He had already been retired for several weeks, but he had not renewed his health insurance, so he and his son were uninsured. However, it's common knowledge that it's literally impossible to be uninsured in this country, which is based on universal health insurance. It was extremely irresponsible of him to leave not only himself, but also his own child in such a state. Children were far more susceptible to the vicissitudes of the world, and an uninsured child would inevitably spell doom for its parents. I completed the procedures to have my son covered through my company's social insurance policy and paid the full amount at my own expense of his dentist bill. I took care of the process for the reimbursement of the medical expenses as well. So in the end, I was able to pay the normal amount under the pretext that Wyatt was insured. After that, when Dallas had recovered from his injuries, I confronted him with a divorce and demanded him and Susanna alimony on the grounds of adultery. Dallas asked for a reduction in alimony because that he was in a hopeless financial situation. My ex-husband had planned on starting his own business, but because he was so proud of his ambition, he only made ridiculous promises to his clients and thus made it impossible for them to build a relationship of trust with him. He couldn't get anyone willing to invest in his business, and it was a huge fiasco. Moreover, Susanna, who claimed she wanted to support him through and through, ran away to her parents' house in the countryside after being sued by both Mr. Barrowman and myself for alimony for the affair. It really doesn't matter how much she runs away. She's probably regretting that the cost of the affair was so damn high. I heard that my Dallas had not received any compensation for the car accident because she ran away, and he had no other choice but to reluctantly accept the offer Mr. Barrowman negotiated. Mr. Barrowman wanted nothing to do with him any longer, so he made the offer of withdrawing his demands for alimony under the condition Dallas withdrew his demands for compensation caused by the accident. I agreed to a low alimony payment of $10,000 from my ex-husband, who was deemed financially incapable of paying the standards. Only the child support was ordered to be paid in a lump sum. However, when my in-laws heard that I had agreed to a huge reduction in alimony, they paid me twice the amount that was considered standard. They seemed to have decided to cut ties from their son, and when I asked them to cheer up Wyatt, who was bewildered by the sudden loss of his father, they cried tears of joy. I still considered them to be valuable parts of Wyatt's life, and I still wanted them to be around for their grandson. In this manner, the huge legal process of divorce, alimony, and compensation that had begun with the revelation of my husband's infidelity came to an end. It was a shock that everything I thought we had cultivated as a couple had collapsed in an instant. But I shuddered to think what would have happened if I had failed to see the true nature of my ex-husband's affair. Now, I have another goal set for myself: to become a strong mother whom my son can rely on so that he will not feel lonely. I'm really excited to see him grow into the young man I hope he'll become.